Hello, sisters and brothers. Our devotional for today, for April 24, is a reflection on My Utmost for His Highest. These are devotionals written by Oswald Chambers, and you can always find the link for the daily devotionals at utmost.org. The key text for today comes from Luke chapter 10, and this follows the return of the 72 who had been sent out by Jesus and their reports back to Jesus, and then his words to them. So we'll start at verse 17 of Luke chapter 10. The 72 returned with joy and said, "Lord, even the demons submit to us in your name." He replied, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven." And the devotional is titled "The Warning Against Desiring Spiritual Success," and it focuses on verse 20, Jesus' last words that we just read. "Do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you." Worldliness is not the trap that most endangers us as Christian workers, nor is it sin. The trap we fall into extravagantly desiring spiritual success. That is, success measured by and patterned after the form set by this religious age in which we now live. Never seek after anything other than the approval of God, and always be willing to go outside the camp bearing his reproach. Quote from Hebrews 13, verse 13. In Luke 10, verse 20, Jesus told the disciples not to rejoice in successful service, and yet this seems to be the one thing in which most of us do rejoice. We have a commercialized view. We count how many souls have been saved and sanctified. We thank God, and then we think everything is all right. Yet our work only begins where God's grace has laid the foundation. Our work is not to save souls, but to disciple them. Salvation and sanctification are the work of God's sovereign grace. And our work as his disciples is to disciple others' lives until they are totally yielded to God. One life totally devoted to God is of more value to him than 100 lives which have been simply awakened by his Spirit. As workers for God, we must reproduce our own kind spiritually, and those lives will be God's testimony to us as his workers. God brings us up to a standard of life through his grace, and we are responsible for reproducing that same standard in others. Unless the worker lives a life that is hidden with Christ in God, Colossians 3, verse 3, he is apt to become an irritating dictator to others instead of an active, living disciple. Many of us are dictators, dictating our desires to individuals and to groups. But Jesus never dictates to us in that way. Whenever our Lord talked about discipleship, he always prefaced his words with an "if," never with the forceful or dogmatic statement, "you must." Discipleship carries with it an option. This is a good word, a timely word, and a convicting word for us and for me personally. As we go through some very difficult times right now, I have found myself more apt to debate, more apt to want to be right. And if I'm honest, I think it's because I want people to see things the way that I see things. And that's simply not going to happen through a short exchange or debating or sparring with words on social media or even through text. So this is very convicting and very a very good reminder for us, because the work for us as a church is not to count saved souls. And it's interesting. Chambers says that our work begins where God's grace has laid the foundation. And how often do we actually give ourselves credit for what God has done? When someone comes to Christ, we want to say, "Oh, look at what we have done. That is what God has done." Our work is to be the disciples, to be so deeply rooted in the Word and to be so deeply found in him that that our lives look different, and that we live our lives differently. And I have not done that very well of late. So over the long haul, I feel okay about how I've done, but this is a good and timely reminder and a convicting reminder. And hopefully it is for all of us at this time, because um, we want to be the light and share the light. And just because someone has, even if someone agrees with us, that's not necessarily going to be the end goal of what we're asked to do. So think about that. You know, the 72 came back to Jesus and they reported all the good works, and Jesus said, okay, yeah, I gave you that power to do that. But now just do the work of being the disciples. Count your blessing, knowing that your name is written in heaven. So find your hope, find your grace and your ability to forgive in that truth that your name is found in heaven, and then go and be a disciple and help to disciple others. Thank you as always for listening. Be safe and stay well.